I've been your district attorney for a little while, and my overriding vision revolves around safe neighborhoods for our families, safe schools for our children, and safety out in the open spaces where we participate in recreational activities. The way I plan to achieve those goals are, number one, by focusing on crimes vying against children, crimes against the elderly, and any kind of violent crime. I was a teacher for 10 years before I became the district attorney. I taught at Santa Fe High School, at Laguna Acoma in Cibola County, as well as Grants High School in Cibola County. And that's where I met the lovely and talented Paula Poponi, who's also running for a position here in Sandoval County. But what I learned there is that it's easier to change children's behavior than it is to change adults' behavior. So we put a focus on our children, a focus to use graduated sanctions to change their behavior, a focus on truancy in every county, in every district, to try to curb the truancy problem and give our children a chance by keeping them in school, because when they're not in school, they're not going to church or going to the library, I guarantee you. And we've also done a big push the last year and a half on internet crimes, cyberbullying, sexting, and predators' use of the internet to contact their children. In fact, I was just talking to the Corrales elementary teachers today. I've done about 93% of the schools in Rio Rancho and in the district in general, so we're going to keep on that push. The elderly have brought us to the level of wealth and prosperity that we experience in society today, and it's incumbent upon us and the district attorney as well as law enforcement to make sure they live out the remainder of their life without somebody trying to defraud them, trying to hurt them, steal from them in any way. So that's a focus for the elderly and prosecution there. Along with that, the mentally and physically handicapped. You know, we want to use that heavy-handed power of the state in favor of those who can't help themselves. And then finally, violent crime. Nobody should be allowed to touch another, either with objects, fists, guns, or knives. And if they are, we should prosecute them to the greatest extent that the facts will allow. Every time somebody is hurt, killed, beat, it reduces our freedom. Not only in terms of the clamoring for more laws, but the fear that it causes in us to walk around and go out freely in our society. So that's the means that I wish to accomplish those goals. And so far, I've been able to get the best personnel within the county, or excuse me, within the state. I've had 4 district attorneys on staff. I've had 3 district court judges, and about 5 of our people have gone on to be judges. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Lemuel. Okay, all right. Anybody have a question for our current and running for DA? All right, yeah.
I don't need that.
No, really for the web. Can you just do it for the? Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you, sir.
I'm an ex-cop, and I carry concealed. Right now, my pea shooter is at home. But where do you stand on the Second Amendment and concealed carry in this state?
My job as a chief law enforcement officer is to make sure you and everybody else in my district follow the law. And when they break it, I prosecute them. I'm not a lawmaker. I don't vote on particular laws. So actually, that's a non-issue for me. My job is to know the law, to understand the Constitution, to protect the rights of defendants, to enforce the rights of victims, but not to make or enforce Second, Third, Fourth, all 15th, 18th, 20th Amendment. So, I mean, my personal views are not important, you know, and that was true with the death penalty. You know, are you for or against it? That's irrelevant. You know, my job is to enforce the law. If we have the death penalty, the facts are there, the aggravators are there, we're going to move forward with it. It doesn't matter what I think inside. So I know some may think, well, gee, he doesn't have any personal values, you know, how can we help this guy? But mine, I took an oath. And that oath to the Constitution, the state Constitution, rules me. It doesn't matter what I think about particular things. What matters is that I enforce the law in a fair and just manner and not take on these other side issues which are kind of irrelevant. Thank you.
Okay, I got one here and then I'll take you next. There we go.
Yes,
In 2011, President Obama signed the National Defense Authorization Act, and in a section in there, it gives the federal government the power to indefinitely detain any American citizen without due process on just a suspicion of terrorism or domestic terrorism. Where do you stand on enforcing that law?
I don't stand anywhere around it because there's a supremacy, we have this thing called the supremacy clause in the Constitution. And any kind of federal law, the state can't do anything to enforce, and vice versa. The feds can't come back and enforce state laws. So, you know, I will try to be sure that a person is held with a high bond, with no bond, or a reasonable bond in order to protect society during the pendency of the proceedings toward trial, as well as to ensure that that person shows up at trial. But this thing about terrorism, if something's happened, like a terroristic attack or a terroristic thing in our society, we'll have to look at what the law says under the state law and see if we can prosecute it. But the feds will probably come in and take it. Now, there are certain laws that both the state and the feds can prosecute, dual sovereignty. Like if there's murder involved in this terrorist attack, after the federal government finishes with them and possibly convicts them, then the state will have a chance to come in and try that person and convict them again as well. Do you remember that Timothy McVeigh out in Oklahoma? Remember he was prosecuted under Fed law, got the death penalty, and then prosecuted under state law and didn't get it. So, but the only time we can't prosecute under that dual sovereignty theory is the law of drugs. Only one sovereignty is going to allow a person for possession of drugs or use of drugs. So this terrorism thing is kind of outside of my purview. If a law is violated in my county, I'm going to prosecute it. If the feds take it, then I'm going to have to make a decision whether there's going to be a double prosecution and if that's legal. So if it need be, I probably will, because it sends a message that you might not be prosecuted twice, or once, but you might be prosecuted twice as well. So thank you for your question.
Okay, and another one right here.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for your service.
Mr. Freeze, thank you.
Mr. Martinez. Let's see, I'm interested, I don't remember a lot of cases that your office has prosecuted, especially here in Rio Rancho and Corrales. So could you take the time to just name a few that you were prosecuted successfully in this area in the last year?
In the last year, we haven't had a lot of them. Most of our major crimes, like murder, are still pending. There's some that we took to the appeals court and the Supreme Court are waiting for a decision. There's some that are claiming competency or incompetency, so they're getting evaluations. So thank God there's not a lot of major crime in Rio Rancho and Sandoval County. Rio Rancho people are lucky because they have the Rio Rancho police, and they're the best police force in the district, period. You know, on a good year, we have one murder in Sandoval County. In a bad year, we have 3. So it's not like we have a lot of violent crime or high-profile crimes in this county. In Valencia County, which is also my district, I have Sandoval, Cibola, and Valencia. You know, on a good year, we had 15 murders down there with 77,000 people, and 20 on a bad year with 77,000 people. You know, there's 131. That's why you see me all the time with Levi Chavez, the cop who's alleged to have killed his wife, with the 10-year-old Benjamin Hilbert, who's alleged to allegedly killed his father. The other cop, McCracken, we prosecuted down there in Sandoval County for allegedly killing his wife. Barbara Lumpsey, you know, tied up, put in the car, folded up in a blanket, gas in a blanket, stuck in the trunk, and then set a fire over there in Valencia County. So I would say you got a lot of vintage drug crimes, you got a lot of vintage embezzlement crimes, theft crimes, DWI, but not a lot of violent crime. So in that, you're lucky. So the high profiles I talk about are probably out of other counties and not here. We do have some child abuse, child sex crimes here from teachers, stepfathers, fathers, as well as boyfriends. So things like that happen, but you know, not a lot of high profile violence, and I think you guys are lucky for a county this size. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah,
Incredibly safe.
we are blessed, I would say that. Thank you.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
We have, I think, 2 more questions.
questions and not a ton of time, but I'll try to squeeze them in, okay?
Sure.
Here we go.
Mr. Martinez.
Yes, sir.
I got a couple questions for you. The first one, about a little bit of detail, actually, give everybody in the room a little background of why I'm asking these questions.
Put it up to your mouth.
So, in the last 6-8 weeks, I believe, you hired a gentleman out in Grants named Anthony Griego.
That's correct.
Okay, so Anthony Griego was involved in a bowling alley incident in which I think it was during work hours under the influence of alcohol.
That's incorrect, sir. You got the wrong guy. Yeah, he wasn't. That was Fitzpatrick, Judge Fitzpatrick Child, and 2 others that worked over the district attorney. It wasn't Anthony Griego. Anthony Griego, you mind if I talk? I don't mean to interrupt you. You want to finish your question?
So, I pulled this up on cable.
It's wrong.
It's wrong.
Anthony Griego was the one who's
It's a placard.
exactly
Right.
that
was
one.
the
He
second
didn't.
instance over here.
He wasn't involved in the other one. He drove he drove with another person to work back and forth, and that person was handicapped. So that person would put their placard and they'd park in the handicapped space. Well, one day that lady left early. So guess who was driving the car? Anthony Griego, non-handicapped person. And guess who zeroed in on him right then? Well, it was the camera. So it was the incident of handicapped placard with a non-handicapped person, and when he explained what happened, that was a legitimate reason. He may have driven that car away with the placard on it, but he didn't arrive there on it, and he didn't do it multiple times.
Mr. Martinez, so
Yes.
both of these were Larry Barker investigations. Both of them made Channel 13 News. I have his name on both instances. Okay, so we can go back and look. I will go back and check on that.
Yeah, go back, because you know how he works, Larry Barker. You know, it's called shotgun
Excuse me, Mr.
journalism,
Martinez,
so.
excuse me for just a second. Let me just finish.
Oh,
So-
you have a question still?
I will get a question there in just a second.
All right.
So, Mr. Griego was asked why he continued to park in the handicapped parking. So it wasn't a one-time incident. It was caught multiple times, according to Larry Barker and Channel 13 News, and refused to just say, hey, I did it. He used a 16-year-old girl's handicapped parking permit. So I don't know whose story's wrong. I pulled it off the internet. I have the quotes if you'd like me to read them from KRQ, Channel 13.
Which
And
is
then, so the questions I have for you.
Yeah, okay.
So the questions I have for you, here's a couple questions. Knowing this, and Mr. Griego resigned his position in Albuquerque after the second incident. First one was the bowling alley incident, where he used his position of power to threaten people. I believe it was him. We'll go back and look. Second one was the
Handicapped placard.
Okay, so he resigned his position after both of those. Okay, and then within a month or 6 weeks, you hired him into the Grants office. So I have to ask you your thought process on why you would hire this gentleman into the same type of role he had just been potentially, we'll go back and verify, twice brought up in front of his boss for misconduct, suspended. And then we hired him into our group. And how can I have confidence in the integrity of the office that you guys are managing when we hire this? Those are my 2 questions.
Anthony Griego was a good prosecutor. He may have made a mistake. He admitted his mistake and told me the facts of that story that I just relayed unto you. I had a judge call me. I had several prosecutors call me, as well as defense attorneys call me, tell him that this guy is a very good prosecutor. He's good. We needed somebody in Grants. It's tough to get somebody in Grants. Now we have somebody in Grants, and he's doing a good job. So if you want to check a lot of my prosecutors' backgrounds, they do make mistakes. You know, we have one lady who was charged with the DWI in Santa Fe. She's our best child abuse prosecutor. Now look, I did hire her, but now I have her with the state bar. We have a little committee there that helps people that have a problem. And part of her job with me is not only prosecuting crime, which she's one of the greatest prosecutors in Mexico on child abuse, but she helps others who have that kind of problem. So we can't exclude people with talent for a mistake that they made, especially if they're willing to atone and work on it in order to help others avoid that mistake. And I think that's what